live, man. And today, man, hey, look, man, we got some breaking. Well, it's not breaking news anymore, but we did get some big news today. Some sad news for Lions fans. We're of course going to talk about that a little bit more. We got to touch on that over here. We have to do it. All right, just because it happened hours ago doesn't mean we could just pass on talking about that a little bit. So we're going to. But I also wanted to. I don't know. I don't know if I want to expand on this or not. I kind of just stopped, but I'm not sure how far I want to go with this. You can see it in the title. Essentially losing both coordinators, right? Which we're losing this offseason. That's one of the biggest, I don't know what to call it, like biggest question marks, I think, from the outside looking in about the Lions. Like, oh man, they lost both coordinators. That's what's going to happen to the Lions now they lost both coordinators. And look, man, it's a legitimate question. But today I went through and I was like, all right, well, let's just look at the history of it. Like what's in the recent history, what has it meant to lose your coordinator? Like what's the impact of that? And then maybe is there a trend of like, oh, if you go this path, it works out. And I'll be honest, the results that I found were just not great. Not great in terms of it's bad. Not great in the sense of there was really no trend. There was no consistency with anything. It was just like, all right, I'll explain it when we get there. But before we get to that, we're over here on BR, so we have to talk about Frank Ragnow retiring from the Lions officially today. His post on Instagram, which was heartfelt. It was very sad after not showing up to voluntary OTAs as well as Alex Anzalone. And we know the Alex one is seemingly definitely about a contract just based on his ex post. I don't think he's considering retirement. Hopefully not. But that one seems pretty clear cut. As for Frank Ragnow, I think his explanation for the retirement was exactly what it was. I think it was him coming and him making that decision. One second, actually, chat. Give me 1 second here. Make sure everything's all right. I gotta make sure everything's all right here in the back. All right, we're good. But yeah, I think it was essentially him coming and making that decision that he made, and it was about health, and it was him putting that priority first. And look, we're not inside Frank Ragnow's body, but we know the guy is banged up all the time, and he plays through literally everything. Yeah, 29 years old, he's retiring. I mean, it makes you think of like we've had a lot of guys retire young. Like remember Kelvin, he was especially towards the end, it felt like that guy was always injured. Like he was always going with something in the lower body. And Calvin was a freak. So it was like, I mean, in a great way, like athletically speaking, it was like, man, you're not supposed to be built like that. And he always had like the lower, I think it was like the ankle problems he always had to deal with. And for Frank Ragnow, it's constantly been a toe issue, right? He's always had the toe issue that he's been dealing with and something that he's kind of just worked through. But for Frank, it's not even just that. Like Frank's had that consistent thing, which I'm sure is super frustrating. I think anything in the lower body is super frustrating for a big man, especially or back injuries. I'm sure those are awful. But when it's constantly that attached to then other things on top of that, you just know those offensive linemen. You just know those offensive linemen are just injured in all ways possible. Like these dudes are just going through it, just based on the game inside the trenches there, and especially over the center, you got guys lined up over top of you, especially in our division. Some of the interior defense linemen that we have. So when these injuries keep piling on top of each other, and he continues to play through it to the point where it's like, all right, Frank isn't practicing, but he's going to play. He's Frank Ragnow. He's got 4 injuries. He's probably going to play. He's Frank Ragnow, and then he does. And at 29, to me, that tells me everything, though. Like it's not it doesn't. It tells me that it was truly that was the decision. Like if it was just like I just need more money, one, I think the Lions would have given him more guaranteed money. If that's all it was, like we need some guarantees in there. I don't think the Lions would have hesitated to be like, here you go, here's some guarantees, we'll lock you in. And I don't think that. I mean, worst case, if he was like, hey, I can't make it here, I got to go make it somewhere else. This dude would have gotten banged anywhere else. All right, like this dude legitimately could have made any money that he wanted. He was that good. He was at that age. I think it was just as it was in his message, it was clear it was this guy was dealing with a lot, and this is not a game that gets any easier, you know. And I mean, the Lions didn't have a long offseason, it felt like either. I mean, you had on top, the Lions are now playing deep into the playoffs. Like everything feels so shortened. Everything's like, turn around. Here we go. We're back at football again. And now he's dealing with those seasons. I think it was just simply that like he didn't want to put his body through that again. Like I don't know if I want to throw my body into this ring again with what I'm constantly dealing with. And look, we'll see. I'm sure more will come out as time goes on in terms of why he did it, why he didn't do it. But ultimately, when you look at the post, I think the post is the truth. I think the post is the truth. I think that that's truly what it was, is that he was just having these health issues, and he wanted to make sure that he was okay going forward in life, because this is not the end. Like you got so much more life to live. Don't let it be messed up, where you can't run around, you can't move. You don't want to deal with that. All right. So I think I said it like when I initially dropped the video. Like I am happy for Frank Ragnow in that from that perspective. Like he's dealing with that. I'm happy for you, man, that you were, you got to the place where you were comfortable with yourself saying, I'm willing to do this because you like look, these dudes are different level people, like in terms of the competitiveness, especially a guy like Frank Ragnow that plays through literally everything. The guy can't talk and he's still in the field with a throat injury. It's like I don't even know what's going on here, but he's still doing it. Like these are the types of obviously they're getting paid well, but like trying to get guys like that off the field, man, like the investment they've made ever since, they were, little kids, like trying to get them to stop doing something before they're 30 years old for the rest of their life, that's difficult. Like that's a very difficult decision to make is like, okay, I'm just going to stop playing this. Like this is his thing. This is what he does, what he loves, right? This is what he's passionate about. So it's what he throws everything into. So I think, and we know he likes fishing, so we'll have that opportunity. But man, if he's all beat up, is he going to be able to fish? I mean, to be honest, like if he's all messed up, I don't even know if he's going to be comfortable doing that. You got to look, man. So ultimately, I'm just grateful for Frank Ragnow that he was here and that, look, there was questions last year. I remember it was like, is he going to retire? And he played last year and it was great. I think even at one point, he's like, I'm not retiring. Like this guy, I think that's all it was. He was just contemplating it. And I do believe that there were conversations. I don't know any of this to be true, but I do believe the Lions, as we all kind of knew, that it was in the potential, like, all right, at some point this is going to happen. Like at some point this guy's going to retire. Let's get prepared for this. And for the last couple of years, I think starting really last year, everybody was kind of discussing it a little bit, like, should we draft the future center? And I think that's when last year he came out and he's like, I'm not retiring. So we kind of put that on the back burner. But based on how they attacked this draft, how they attacked this offseason, I think it was pretty well known that this was a legitimate possibility. I think that within those conversations, I don't think that he was just like, I'm not showing up because of cash. I think that he had things that he had to make a decision on. And, that's why early on, he's like, all right, this is the time I should be there, right? You don't have to be there, but this is where everybody comes together now. And I'm not in the spot to go do that. So this is the time that I make that decision, right? If it was one thing, it's like, oh, training camp. I don't know if I feel like, I think it's clear why he made that decision when he did. And that's because, he just came to the realization that this doesn't make sense for me anymore. So, I'm hoping the best for him. I don't expect him to like come out of retirement or something, but who knows? I guess things change. But ultimately, it's sad. It's sad. So home for the best, man. Hopefully he hasn't went through too much where it's like he can't enjoy the next stage in life. So hopefully he's all right there. But really just grateful for Frank and upset that we didn't get a Super Bowl with him. That's the big thing. I mean, he was so good last year. And Frank's like one of those guys where like tackles you can appreciate, I think, better than everybody else on the O-line. Just because of the position they play, they're easier to tell. Who they're matched up against all the time. I think centers are maybe the most difficult guys to appreciate the communication, to appreciate the consistency, for him being on the field all the time. And then also just the versatility was insane. Like obviously this is a guard / center, but not even like that. Just what they asked him to do was crazy. I mean, think about it. The Lions have been through a lot of changes in what they've done stylistically. Over the last couple of years, they changed. They changed. We're going to do more gap. We're going to do more zone. And they've adapted things all over the place. There's been a lot of moving parts, but he and Decker have been just, you guys are chilling. Like you guys are staying right where you are. So there's been no changes. Those guys have been able to just make it work through all of this. He's been part of that. And he's done it with 3 injuries next to his name every single week, it feels like. So this guy was incredible. And hopefully he gets like honored some way for the Lions, down the road. Like I know you think of way out, but like maybe they put him on the, I don't know how hard it is to get into that thing. It seems pretty difficult. It's not that many players, but in some way, this dude needs to get honored as a Lion because he's that good. So shout out to Frank Ragnow, one of the best in football. And I think he'll get more love now, unfortunately, that he's retired than he did when he was playing because of the position that he played. But ultimately, he's going to deserve all that love that he gets. That being said, before we get to the coordinator discussion, just to kind of wrap this up, because I do want to dive into this more, and we can do that. But just my like initial reaction to the whole thing. First thing I did was I did check, and I was like, all right, is there any available free agents that would be interesting? Not in terms of starters, but like something that'd be like, all right, that'd be kind of cool. Maybe they could bring that piece in. The one that caught my eye personally was Tristan Colin from Arizona. I've been a fan of Tristan Colin. He's played guard and center. He's not that old either. He's just played very limited reps. Like for competitive sake, I could see something like that. I mean, salary cap wise, the Lions are going to open up some cap space. That's something that we haven't touched on. This is definitely going to open up some cap space over the next couple of years. Rightfully so, because you're losing one of your best players, but it's going to open up some legitimate cap space. So in terms of flexibility, I guess it makes the decision easier because Lions don't have a decision to make. It's like, hey, you're not here. So, that, I guess. But, yeah, I felt like someone like that would be interesting. I always liked Tristan Colin going back to his time then as well. And yeah, you could go the guard route too. Like if you wanted to add another guard, I wouldn't have an issue with that. Will Hernandez would be interesting. That'd be interesting. I think Daniel Brunskill is interesting too because he can play tackle as well. You could look at that market. It's not a great market though for offensive linemen. There's just a couple guys that are kind of sitting out there. But if the Lions wanted to go like the guard route to add a little bit, like more of like, hey, let's go add a veteran to this mix or something. They could do that just so they feel like they have more flexibility. Obviously, Brandon Sheriff's still chilling out there. I don't know if there's been any news on Brandon Sheriff, but um, if ever something happened with that, I'd be on board with it. Like if if the Lions wanted to bring him in, if something could happen with that, this would actually be a really good time to bring him in. If it could be a reasonable contract as a guard, it's like, yeah, we can start him unless one of the rookies takes his spot. Then it makes the situation much easier where it's like, okay, we feel good about who we have, but we don't have to force a rookie there if he's not ready. But if he is, as long as the contract's not crazy, we could just go that route. So ultimately, I think there's a couple of options the Lions could go with, at the very least, to bring some competition in. Outside of that, in terms of who they added this offseason, I am comfortable with what they added. Like if they did nothing, which they're going to do something, they're going to add at least another body in some way. I almost guarantee that. But in terms of like from a starting perspective, what we can expect to see this O-line look like, I'm actually not overly worried about it necessarily. It definitely takes a step back, but I'm not that concerned about it really because I do think Tate's going to work well at center. I think he's going to be a center. So I think, if anything, it's like, all right, we're just going here faster, making that transition faster. I think center is a better fit for him than guard. I mean, we'll see how fast that happens, but I ultimately think it's going to be a better fit than him for guard. I think it fits his skill set better. So if that jumps off immediately, I'm pretty excited to actually see that get underway immediately and to see what that turns into. And this could be the opportunity for that door to open without having to kind of figure out when you can actually go that direction without there being some like weird overlap. Like you can just go right there. I mean, if that's your best guy, that's your best guy. You go that way. And at least for OTAs on day 3, it sounded like he was kind of the guy leading the way, but Graham was repping there. And you always know you can fall back to Graham Glasgow at that spot if that's what it is. If it's like, all right, he's not that comfortable at center right now because he didn't really play center in college. If he's not comfortable at center, or if your best 5 is just Graham at center, then you go that route and you put Tate back at guard or something like that. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe Tate's not even a starter. I mean, there's that path too. If you put him at, he probably will start, but there could be like if you put Graham at center, you could legitimately have Miles Frazier and Christian Mahogany as your starting guard. So that path is still there, but it's definitely going to kick a young guy in. At least one of these young guys are going to get in really fast, but essentially 2 because of Mahogany as well. And again, I think they'll add a free agent here at some point just to add some depth in some way. It may not be a big name, but they'll add about another body. Okay, on top of that, because they have the open roster spots, this is something that I was like, I'm gonna do this, and I just want to see what happens. Like I didn't know what the results would be, so I went back through 2021 and I went through the head coaching hires. Now these weren't like guys like Todd Bowles. So you think Todd Bowles, he got hired by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to be their head coach, but he was their defensive coordinator before, so he was just promoted to the head coach job. So I didn't like include guys like that. But I went through like the guys that were, okay, they were an offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, and then they got hired as a head coach because that's what happened to both our guys. It's not like these dudes got fired or something because, that changes things. Or they went and they took a lateral job. We'll call it a lateral job, even if it's not always, but, a lateral job somewhere else. These guys both got promoted essentially, but elsewhere to getting head coaching jobs. So I went back through 2021, and maybe I got to go further than this because the results are just unclear right now. But I went through and I was like, is there any trends of like, okay, teams, first off, the first thing I wanted to look at, because the example that people always use is Philly. Like, oh, well, Philly lost both their coordinators. Trash. And it was like, well, it was bad. Well, they went 11-6. They got blown out of the playoffs. They finished the season horribly, but they started off great. They were like 11-1, and then they were horrible down the stretch. So that was the example that's typically used because they lost both their coordinators after a strong season. Then they had the bad year. Then they had to reset again. Then they won the Super Bowl. So they did it twice. Just the first time around didn't work. But Philadelphia is not the only team that's done this, number one. And Philadelphia is also kind of a weird example because every team's in different spots in terms of how they do it from the top down. And Philadelphia, seemingly, from what we're able to gather, I'm not saying Sirianni had no say in this at all, but seemingly from what we're able to gather is it was much more of a upper decision making in terms of let's bring in the next coordinators that are like Vic Fangio, like guys that have done this, versus what the original plan was that the Eagles followed, which is like, hey, we're going to promote 2 guys from within and they're going to become our coordinators. And then it was like, this is not good. This is not, well, ultimately it wasn't good because they moved off both of them. So they went a different route. And it seemed like there was less, not to say he had no say at all, but there was less of a kind of just Nick Sirianni being like, this is the guy I want to bring in. And I always think it's important to start back there first because Dan Campbell has brought in coaches, and he's typically done a good job. But I think the biggest thing is because it's maybe not as much about the fact that he's missed, because he's missed on coaches. We can argue that he's missed on coaches, right? You could say Anthony Linney missed. Now I would also argue like, our talent was in a pretty awful spot there as well. And then they mutually agreed and they kind of moved off him, they moved off him. And you can say that's a miss. And, you had Aubrey Pleasant, didn't last that long, kind of went another direction. Aubrey Pleasant had a great background, and he's still doing his thing, but just not here. But at the same time, he's also seemingly, whether that's Dan Campbell leading the way or the other guys a part of it, he's been able to also recognize, like, all right, change needs to be made. And typically we walk away, I think, and we all feel like, okay, maybe if we question it at the time, we walk back, we're like, actually, that was a pretty good decision, Dan. like, all right, he actually kind of knew what he's doing there. I mean, it's like that actually worked out. When it came to Anthony Lynn, it was like, okay, who's his bench? Oh, the offense is actually looking pretty good. And Dan kind of took it over. He's like, I'm going to handle business. And in that time, for it being year one, it wasn't like Dan Campbell was like, that guy's kind of in the backseat now. You're the offensive coordinator. You call the plays now. He's like, I'm going to do it because he didn't have that guy maybe that Hugh was able to recognize on the staff that was like, okay, it's your turn. He didn't have that guy yet being year one. So he's had the awareness, the wherewithal to be able to recognize like, okay, seemingly this isn't working. Let's try another direction. And also, if the guy that you're putting in that spot from the small sample size we has actually makes some sense in terms of promoting players or promoting coaches. And the biggest example there would be guys that have done that in-house. Like, not everybody said it. Mark DeLone. Like, there's been guys, we went to cornerback with Dre Blah. He didn't last that long. We've had those in and outs. But typically when guys get promoted, they stick around, right? I mean, because they got promoted, but they stick around. And the biggest one would be Ben Johnson, who seemingly got a bigger role, and then he got promoted to OC. And I don't think that was like the craziest move to come to the conclusion. It's like, maybe make Ben Johnson the OC. It was like, all right, let's make Ben Johnson the OC. And it was great. I don't think that was a hard decision to make, maybe from the outside looking in, but ultimately he seemingly had a relatively good feel with that. So I went through and I was like, all right, well, going back to 2021, how much truth is there to the idea that, okay, you lose your coordinators, you're going to be trash. You're going to be trash, but you're going to take a big step back on that side of the ball, essentially. And man, the results were just not conclusive on anything. And I think that the actual result of that means that it's all situation by situation. Let's not throw this blanket idea of, oh, hey, they lost both coordinators, taking a step back. Like, I don't think it's fair to do that. I think the only way you could do this, and it's still going to be nearly impossible because we don't know what these guys are going to bring to the table. John Morton's been an OC one time. Kelvin Shepard's never been a defensive coordinator. So there's there's not a lot to go off of there. It's not like this guy's done it for years on years. And plus, we've had guys that have done things for years on years in the past, and it doesn't always work out. We've had that too. Other teams have done the same thing, and it doesn't always work out because of that, as you'll see. So, for example, all right, going through the recent years. So I'm taking these guys that became head coaches. So I went for okay, let's go to Cincinnati. So you go to Cincinnati and you have a guy like Brian Callahan. So Brian Callahan, this is actually an interesting one because in 2023, they actually got better the next year after Callahan left. So Callahan becomes the head coach of Tennessee. And in 2024, statistically, you'd make the argument they were actually a better offense. Now, the problem with this one, and this is the problem with this too, and there's no great way to, this is why I think in some ways it's like, okay, I'm not going to give you this is the exact move to make. But what I think I can give you is the idea that you lose both coordinators is automatically a step back, or you lose coordinators automatically a step back just because they were really good, which that's only based on the idea that, oh, there's no way else to go but down, right? That's not actually based on the fact that you're necessarily getting worse. That's just based on the fact that, hey, you were really good, so you have to go backwards. Like, that's all that would be based on. And I think based on the odds, like, oh, yeah, it's easier to find a bad coach than a good coach. Like, that makes sense. But I don't think there's any conclusive evidence that anything backs this up truly because so Cincinnati actually arguably got better when their offensive coordinator left and they went to Pritchard, who was their quarterback coach. He became the offensive coordinator. Now, again, Joe Burrow was kind of injured, so it changed some things up. But we'll do more examples here. Let me do another one. Tampa Bay changed their offensive coordinator. And when Tampa Bay changed their offensive coordinator, they Liam Cohen, they had Dave Canales, and then they go to Liam Cohen. And if you look at that now, Liam Cohen's different because Liam Cohen, in terms of how he got there, he was already an OC. He was an OC with the Rams. He was an OC with Kentucky. So he falls into a different category of a guy that was not it wasn't like it was a in-house promotion, but it also wasn't a guy that was taking a job that necessarily a step up elsewhere. He was just taking the same job in a different place. But he took that same job in a different place, Liam Cohen did, and their offense got better when Dave Canales left. Their offense got better in terms of the passing game. Their offense, the run game, they got a lot better. Their points per game got a ton better. They got better across the board in pretty much everything with Tampa Bay. And that was also coming off a good year. That's why Canales got a job as a head coach. But it got even better And I think that when you start to look at some of these examples, so much of this too relies on what is the structure that's put around. See, that's one of the biggest things that stuck out to me when I'm going through this is the structure that you actually build when you think about like Brad Holmes and the team that he's building and the core that he's building. You think about the way they put these puzzle pieces together, like coaching matters a ton. It definitely matters the reason they're in and out. But at the same time, the structure of the way that you're able to maintain and build a core team that is able to sustain kind of a philosophy, that seemingly also matters a ton too. Because there's a lot of these teams where whether it's major injuries or you start to see their kind of players and like, that doesn't even look like the same team anymore. Those kind of things tend to go together a little bit when guys leave. For the Lions, I would say on really both sides, that didn't happen. I would say there's now losing Frank is like part of the course, and now he kind of gets thrown into the mix, but it doesn't feel like the Lions are much different than what they were. It feels like the Lions are pretty much very similar to what they were before they lost these coordinators. So those are the first two. And then here's where things get messy, right? And this is why I'll give you the numbers at the end. This is why things get really messy. You go to a team like you go to Baltimore, right? Mike Macdonald. So Mike Macdonald goes to Baltimore, and the defense that he was a part of before he ends up going there, his defense was essentially the same with Baltimore, right? Like Zach Orr takes over as the defensive coordinator, and you could argue that there really wasn't a big jump and there really wasn't a big like dive from the defense. They pretty much stayed the same in a lot of categories. The biggest thing would be they're still top 10 in pretty much everything. I mean, some things they took a step back in, but they were great versus the run. Their pass defense got a little bit worse. They were great versus the run, and he's still there. So I would assume like, all right, that's at least not terrible. It's not bad, but it's not a success maybe, but it's not terrible. And when I went through these full numbers, and I'll give you a couple more examples, but if you look at the numbers on this, since 2021, assuming I didn't miss anybody, because I don't think I did, coaches that were promoted from within. So in our case, we kind of have a little bit of both. Like in some ways, we kind of promoted John Morton because like, oh, well, he was here. You know, a couple years ago, this dude was our OC, or not our OC, but he was here. But at the same time, he also was coming from elsewhere, and he wasn't an OC, but he was an OC before. He kind of touches every box in some way here. So what are you going to consider him? I wouldn't consider him a direct promotion because he was here for a year, but it was a couple years ago. But coaches that were promoted from within on the offensive side since 2021 had in my opinion, based on the numbers across the board, 2 of them hit, 4 of them missed. 2 of them hit, 4 of them missed. Out of house options out of house options on the offense side since 2021, 1 of them hit, 1 of them missed. And again, we're talking about guys that went from OCDC, got a head coaching job somewhere else, and then who is the next guy up? Out of house options, 1 hit, 1 miss. Okay, so you can see there's not really if anything, it's like, all right, well, offensively, maybe don't promote a guy from within. I mean, if there's anything we can gather from that, it's like, all right, maybe you should go the outside route. Maybe that works a little bit better. And on the defensive side of the ball, it's essentially very similar, just not as much there. Offensive coaches get hired more as head coaches, it seems like. But on the defense side of the ball, it's like, okay, well, in-house promotions, how many of those made sense? How many of those hit? 1 of them hit since 2021. 2 of them missed since 2021. And when you go out of the house, that's in-house. Out of the house, 1 hit, 1 miss. That there's really like no path of consistency here. But here's what I found interesting. So if you start to look at these examples individually, notice something that stands out. The next hiring ultimately has to make sense. And I know that sounds like, oh, okay, obviously. You kind of I feel like the best way to predict that this is going to work is wait and see. But if you want to try to guess before we see, just bet on the guy that's making the decision and how he's done in the past. And to me, I'm going to bet on Dan Campbell because he's done a pretty good job in the past. Because if you look at some of these other teams and what their decisions were, you're like, wait a minute, why would they do that? Like, for example, like we said, the Philadelphia Eagles, they promoted both from within. Nick Sirianni seemingly missed on both of those. Both those guys were fired after a year. Their stats dropped in both cases. One of them actually wasn't as bad as it kind of gets noted, but both of them were gone. Gannon took another job elsewhere. Steichen took his job in Indy. Neither of those really worked. All right. So they went a different route. But you got guys like Josh McDaniels. So he was with New England. He's their offensive coordinator. When he leaves, New England goes to Matt Patricia as their offensive coordinator. And when you think about that, it's like, okay, well, what do we do with that? Because like, all right, I guess it's an in-house promotion. It's not normal though. And it doesn't seem like that made a lot of sense. So of course that failed. Like that, it doesn't seem like it made a lot of sense. And it did fail. You got a lot of examples like this across the board. Now, if you go to teams like, Green Bay, for example, and these are the weird ones where it's like, all right, the guy stuck around. Like Green Bay lost Nathaniel Hackett. Well, Hackett was a horrible head coach, it seemed, but he was at the hip with Rodgers. But then it's also like, okay, but you got to throw in the fact that Aaron Rodgers, his last season was the year after Hackett left. So some of it could have just been these guys don't mesh, right? Stenovich became the offensive coordinator, who was their run game coordinator, which meant that it was very likely very heavily reliant on Matt LaFleur as their head coach leading the way. And those things did not mesh. Also, Rodgers has fallen off since that time. So who knows? It was just like, this guy can't play that well anymore. But those kind of things just go together. So it's like, all right, you put the factors in there. It's like, okay, but how much can we really take from this? I don't know how much we can actually gather from this. I mean, if anything, we could just say, well, those two just didn't align. You had Matt LaFleur and Rodgers. Clearly, that wasn't going to work out. But in fairness, Rodgers hasn't worked out anywhere, since he's left. And Hackett wasn't a good head coach, but he did really well in his last year. I guess another thing is not every coordinator is a head coach. That's something that has to be reminded to me, but it's true. Not every coordinator should be a head coach. Mike McDaniels. Here's a positive example. Mike McDaniels now with Miami. I'm not talking about what he did in Miami. With San Francisco, they actually got better offensively when he left. The year Mike McDaniels left, they actually got better. And the weird part, well, I won't say the weird part, but it's an understandable part. Again, these things have to make sense. Kyle Shanahan's their offensive coordinator that year. When he leaves, he becomes their offensive coordinator. And I'm looking, and I'm like, wait a minute. Who is their offensive coordinator? They didn't have an offensive coordinator. It was Kyle Shanahan. They're like, Kyle Shanahan's the offensive coordinator, which is like, all right, that makes sense. It's Kyle Shanahan. It's his offense. I guess they don't need an offensive coordinator, and they got better without him. Mike McDaniel seems like he does a really good job with what he's doing offensively, but they got better without him. And then you go to an example like, all right, well, Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell leads the Rams, but all of us look at it as Sean McVay's offense, and it's like, all right, they've had a lot of guys in and out of there. However, they did get worse when Kevin O'Connell left. He's pretty good with the Vikings, but that next season, Stafford played half the year. Now, the numbers were bad, but he only played half the year. It's like, I don't know how much I want to really grab from that. And the year before, they won the Super Bowl, so it was the first year right there. When you start looking at like some of these things, it's hard to get a grasp on literally anything here and get a gauge on what we think is going to happen. Like, I got a couple more. So DeMeco Ryans leaves. He's an awesome head coach, it seems, in Houston. However, when he leaves, they go out of house and say, let's go get Steve Wilks, who's been a defense coordinator before. You could argue they were very similar to the year before across the board. I mean, their pass defense arguably got better. They allowed a very similar points per game. Their run defense was in a similar ball, but the run defense took a little bit of a step back. Their pass defense maybe got better, and they were essentially the same in terms of points per game. So really wasn't much of a change with San Francisco. And I think, again, to the point that I made at the beginning, the best way to guess what's going to happen is probably look at what the core of the team is. So, for example, Philadelphia, they get rid of both coordinators. Or they don't get rid of them. They lose both coordinators. They go hire from within. Sirianni seemingly doesn't know what he's doing in terms of hiring people. But they also then add Saquon, and the roster comes together. It's like, this team is going to run the football. That's who they are. They're going to run some QB sneaks. And they had that until the end of the season, but it looked like with those guys that were OCs, like there was no kind of creativity there at all. I mean, their offense looked about as basic as it gets. So part of that is like, I don't really know how much those dudes were doing. But anyways, it's not the going on that. But the teams that have it working are seemingly the teams that it's like, okay, but even after that guy left, the style of who they are doesn't really change that much. Like, you still know what you got to deal with when you play San Fran. They lose DeMeco Ryans, and you're like, oh, man, what do we got to get now? Like, you can tell, all right, there might be some tweaks, but we're still playing the Niners. When Mike McDaniel left, you're still playing the San Fran offense with Kyle Shanahan and all these different weapons. And then Christian McCaffrey comes to the fold. It's like, oh, they're really good. They have really good players. And it's like, this is the same, it's a lot of weapons. Dudes do things after the catch. And, Kevin O'Connell, while I was like, all right, the next year wasn't great, but it's been pretty darn good, it seems like, with that team. They've had to tweak some things, but it's come from the top down. But ultimately, it seems like as a whole, the biggest reason for that getting back on track was the philosophy adjusted. Their offensive line got better. They invested there again. I think that the best way to look at this is you can't look at it from coach to coach and just guess, because even if you go back to 2021, like Brian Daboll left. And Brian Daboll, immediately when he left, remember the conversation? It was like, oh, Brian Daboll left. That's why Josh Allen's taking a step back. Dude, the stats were pretty much the same across the board when he left. Like, think about it. They ran the ball arguably better in terms of yards per carry. Their expected points went down. Their rushing yards per game were very similar. And passing the football, they were actually better, but they were about the same in touchdown to interception ratio. And that's when Ken Dorsey took over. And Ken Dorsey was an in-house promotion. Problem is he got fired after a season. And they went a different route. But they were basically the same team. And you have like an Eberflus. Eberflus leaves Indiana. They go Gus Bradley. Indianapolis, they go Gus Bradley. And that was not great. So I don't think there's anything in terms of like, okay, if you're going to replace this guy, go in-house, go out-of-house. Nothing seems to line up there. In-house, out-of-house doesn't matter. It might not work. Most of the time, these things don't work seemingly just because it's hard to find good coaches. But it seems to be like there is no, this is the right way to do it statistically, go this direction. There doesn't seem to be any consistency to that. Maybe I got to go back further in years. to me, what I gather when just looking at these teams' names from Raheem Moore, I mean, Dan Quinn left Dallas, and Dallas just fell off a cliff. But as soon as I went into that, I was like, well, yeah, but Micah was hurt. Literally everybody on that team was hurt. They couldn't stop the run at all. They don't even have dudes to stop the run. So the biggest thing there is like, all right, they got really injured. It makes sense that they got a lot worse defensively. Now they went to Mike Zimmer. So you would think, oh, Mike Zimmer, a pretty good defensive coach. Well, is he or is he not? Because their defense got a lot worse. I don't know if that was Mike Zimmer thing. Maybe they just didn't have the people to match with the philosophy. So I think the biggest way to gauge if it's going to work is simply like this. As long as the identity of who that team is stays relatively the same, and that doesn't change, tweaks are going to happen. Things are going to look different because every coach is different. Guys see it differently. They can react to things differently. But from a big picture perspective, I don't think as long as the identity is basically the same as like, here's how we play the game, here's how we want it to look, and that's coincides with the fact that this is the kind of players that we're going to add. As long as those are similar, it feels like that's going to give you the best shot to make it work. Because I don't think any of us are looking at it like, hey, Dan Campbell's just like Kyle Shanahan, just let him call the offense now. Like nobody's really thinking of it like that, even though he did call plays and it seemed like it worked pretty well. But when he called plays, I think maybe that was the best opportunity for us to get a sense of, okay, this is what Dan Campbell believes in. Let's not turn the ball over. Let's run the football. Like it was like, all right, this is Dan Campbell's thing. Maximize our weapons and feed those dudes. DeAndre Swift, you're getting the ball all the time. We don't have any weapons. And he's been able to kind of adjust. Like since that time we had no weapons, it's okay, we're going to turn the ball over. We just need Goff to be aggressive. You know, I mean, this guy's went from like, let's not turn the football over because we can't make up for those things, to like last year where it's like, we want to be aggressive. And I'm watching Goff play that playoff game. Like, it's not great because we're throwing a lot of picks. This is as aggressive as I've seen him. So I kind of love it too. And I thought it, you know, it led to a lot of big plays as well. So we're kind of opening that up a little bit. But the philosophy, I don't think has ever moved. There's tweaks to it because you're like, all right, our personnel is better. But as long as those things are aligned, I think that philosophy has changed. We still want to run the ball. We still need to play it through the run offensively. That still has to be a thing. We still need to win the turnover battle. Every year, he's like, we got to start forcing turnovers. They come in bunches. When are they going to? Let's force turnovers defensively. And what happened to the defense last season? The thing that I always say is I don't think we lost our identity in how we called things. I thought we lost what made us really good on defense, stopping the run at a dominant level. And I think the Lions this offseason said, let's pour it back into being really good against the run. Let's get that back. Let's be a really good run defensive team. And I think that's where it starts, is the identity and where this all trickles down. Every defensive line coordinator seemingly had that same perspective. By the way, if you want a positive, to kind of think about here, a linebacker coach ended up getting hired, and his run defense got a lot better. When the linebacker coach became the coordinator from a promotion, their run defense got a lot better. Their pass defense took a step back, but their run defense got a lot better. And that was Chris Shula. Chris Shula took over. Chris Shula took over with the LA Rams. And when Chris Shula took over, their run defense became a lot better. So that's just a little side note. Maybe that's going to be the case here with the Lions. But I just think that's the best way to guess this. And I do this because I hear it all the time. Like, they lost both coordinators. I don't know what's going to happen. It's like, all right, just based on like percentages, will they take a step back? You can make a fair guess on that on offense. I mean, they scored 33 a game. Are they going to score 34 a game? It's unlikely, it feels like. I mean, maybe, I don't know. But it's like, all right, if they scored 28, it's like, that's still really good. It's like, okay, things have to go right. Like, defense got to make stops so you can get on offense. Short field. There's a lot that goes into that little goofy stuff. But ultimately, as long as I think the identity of what it wants to be and how you're going to get there is very similar and everybody's on the same page, it's going to happen. And I think for the Lions, what's nice about this is, and this is the little thing I want to add about Dan, and I'm not saying this necessarily means it's going to work, but it gives me in a weird way an optimism. I want to know if y'all feel like this. So I want to leave y'all with this. Let me know your thoughts. Dan Campbell, and I don't know, like maybe this was already decided, but I think about a guy like our quarterback coach, Tanner, or I think about like a Tanner Engstrand, our pass game coordinator. And we all kind of like, he's going to get hired. Maybe he was like, I don't want to be here. I want to go with the Jets. It's like, okay. Maybe he's like, I want to do my own thing. I don't know. I mean, maybe he gets more control because Aaron Glenn's defensive guy. But the fact that like offensively, they didn't go that route, as much as I felt like this just makes sense. Kind of like the Ben Johnson one. It's like, all right, he had a similar background. Let's just go that route. But there's a lot of things we don't know about what these guys are actually doing, and he seemingly had a lot to do with the offense. So I'm not like dissing Tanner Engstrand. But the fact that it went from like, okay, we want to keep the philosophy the same, but I can identify how to keep that philosophy the same without having to just hire in-house. And not like a guy like Tanner Engstrand just stepping in. You're like, oh, of course it was Tanner Engstrand stepping in. It makes me believe, I get a little feeling that like, all right, there's something here that Dan was like, this guy, John Morton, this one actually might be the right time to make this happen. Like this is actually the better call. I get the sense that he may have looked at it like that. Like this might be the better move. And it's like he's able to identify through David Shaw and all these assistants that he brings in. Then defensively, every assistant comes from the same identity. They may have come from different coaching staffs. I mean, the offensive guys come from the same coaching trees, so that makes sense. But defensively, they come from different places. But, man, they all come with the same identity. Here's how we're going to do it on the front. Here's how we're going to play our gaps. Like, it's been the same for like 2.5 years now. It's going to continue. We're going to play gap and a half up front. That's how we want to play it. We're going to play some man coverage. And he's been able to recognize that in-house and out-of-house. So I don't think in-house or out-of-house really matters is ultimately the thing here. It's just, can you keep the identity the same or keep the philosophy of how you're going to get there the same and ultimately have tweaks within that because you have to adjust because, you're human beings. And you think about a guy like Kelvin Sheppard and you think about Kelvin Sheppard and okay, we're going to take a step back. Well, I would think pass defense, right? Because Aaron Glenn not only was a secondary coach, of course, but I thought what improved so much was his ability to adapt game by game. Like, yeah, we were a man team, but game by game, he was different. And things would tweak. Like, hey, maybe we blitz less this year because we have these pieces. Things tweaked. The identity was the same, but things tweaked. You're aggressive on third down. That was always the same. That never felt different. I never felt like with Aaron Glenn, it was like, we're not going to be aggressive on third down this year. That was always the thing with the Lions. But there were different ways to get to that path. It was like, okay, maybe we'll blitz. Maybe we're not going to here. But every game was unique with Aaron Glenn by the time we got to the last season, right? There was a uniqueness in each game plan to it. And I think seeing things like that, it could get you to the point where, like, all right, Kelvin, maybe he's not there yet when he first steps in. Maybe he is. Hopefully, maybe he's a step past that. Maybe he's not there. Maybe there's like, all right, there's some bumps here. Maybe we didn't have the best plan for these guys, and that's a learning curve that's just going to happen naturally. And maybe that's where you have like, okay, hopefully John Morton has less of this, kind of where he's been. He's been an OC before, but I don't think the style of how either of these guys are going to do things are going to change. And I think with this, that matters is because the personnel has to match too. And the personnel the Lions that brought in fits, of course, but it also it things like a team like Philly. Like Philly fell off, yeah, but how much of that was the whole thing didn't make sense? It's like, all right, we lost these really good coordinators, and then we went and we hired guys from in-house, and we don't look like we have any identity. Philly didn't look like they had an identity by the end of the season. They're like, we're gonna run the ball and we're gonna throw deep passes. It was like there's no creativity here at all. It's like we're just going to like step one. There was nothing there. You still have to have that. They didn't look like they had any creativity. It's like there was nothing there, but they go back the next year and it's like, all right, we know who we want to be. We want to run the football. We know how we want to play zone defensively, but we don't have to go in-house necessarily to get that. So when they said, okay, Vic Fangio, we're going to go get that guy, and then they went out of house for the offensive side too. I believe they went out of house for the offensive side too. I don't think I have it written down though, which is unfortunate. Who is their offense? Oh, Kellen Moore. Yeah, Kellen Moore, Anyways, I'm going to leave it there though on Bleacher Report, man. I appreciate y'all joining and I will see you guys on Wednesday. So make sure you tune in. We out. Chat, we're done over here. Well, we're done on Bleacher Report, but yeah, no, this was weird. This is something I want to look more into. I think, this is one of those topics that media constantly brings up. And then today Frank retires and it's like, oh goodness, the season's over. Like these guys are in trouble. They lost both coordinators and they lost their center. They've lost everything. And you're like, wait a minute, they haven't lost everything. Okay, let's calm down. But I thought like this was the purpose. And this was actually, I was doing this before the Frank Ragnow news broke, but like the whole, you lose both coordinators, it's automatically going to be bad. Or so like, yeah, it's hard to replace good coaches. I don't think that's like a new claim, but I would also say it seemingly is like, hey, offensively, there is some consistency there versus defensively, but ultimately it feels like the teams that have consistency are the teams you would expect to have consistency, and it starts with the guy up on top. Like having a guy like Sean McVay, it starts with that, or having a guy like Kyle Shanahan, it starts with that. Not, you have to have that dude that you trust. And I think the difference between Dan and Nick Sirianni when that first stage came around is that Dan had to take over play calling. But Dan recognized that. He didn't have to. I mean, Dan could have been like, all right, look, Andy Lynn, we don't want you calling plays. That guy's calling plays. Here you go. Give it to him. And they didn't do that. They could have done that. He could have done that. Or he could have been like, you know what, Anthony's just hanging out for the rest of the season. We don't love you here, but just do it. We're bad anyway, so who cares? Like, it wasn't like he made the change. We're like, all right, this is for the playoff push. Like, we were garbage anyway. But he was like, maybe I don't have the guy here. I'm going to hold the fort down. So he was at least seemingly able to recognize that. And it would have been one thing if he takes it over. It's like, all right, the Lions cannot get first downs anymore. No more first downs for the Lions now that Dan Campbell's made this change. They actually got better. And I think there's a lot that played into it, some with personnel too. Like, all right, welcome in Josh. That helps. Welcome in Taylor Decker. That helps. But it did like get better with him. So at very least, he definitely has a sense on what he's doing. And I'm not saying that he's a Kyle or a Sean, and he doesn't need to be that, because having just a great offensive coordinator in general doesn't make a good head coach. But at the same time, because he's clearly been a great coach for us, I just think that's what like Brian Daboll leaving. And look, their head coach is the defensive guy. That's Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott is a defensive coach, right? Brian Daboll leaves. Giants aren't doing that well, but Brian Daboll leaves. They bring in Ken Dorsey, promote him. He takes over. Offense pretty good. Next season, he fires the dude. They go with a different offense coordinator, and it seems better. It's like, all right, we're gonna kind of change it up a little bit. That's crazy. It's like, all right, but who's at the top? Who's at the top calling the shots here? That's making this make sense. And we look at the teams that don't seemingly do well with it. The Colts go high, like Eberflus. Like, all right, yeah, that makes sense why that didn't work out. They couldn't find the next guy. I mean, that's understandable that they weren't able to figure that out. You think the Patriots hired defensive coordinators. At that point, I think Belichick was just checked out. He's like, all right, this is not it. Not it, Chief. The Packers at least still have the same guy. You know, Matt LaFleur is a pretty good coach. They have the same guy at least there. San Francisco took no drop. LA Rams, same guy's the offensive coordinator since that time. Like the good teams and the guys that you would trust on the top, the guys that you would trust that head coach to take that over and make that right decision, seemingly make the right decisions. And that seems to be the best path to do it. You know, Baltimore and Mike McDonald is like, all right, you lose Mike McDonald. And I think that he went to Mike McDonald went to Seattle, right? Let me make sure I have that right. I don't know. I wrote it wrong. Yeah, he went to Seattle. And it's like Baltimore is still really good defensively. Now, they took some steps back with personnel and things, but they're still really good. And they still have the same guy there. And then there's Dallas. And it's like, all right, we don't really know what Dallas is doing. Dallas moves off, you know, they lose Dan Quinn, and their defense like, yeah, we're horrible. Yeah, we don't know what we're doing, guys. We are garbage on defense. Like, this dude is band-aiding a lot of things. They also got hurt a lot, though, too, as pointed out. But we don't really know what's going on. And clearly, like, it's a mess over there. So as long as the Lions are in that category, I think you can bet on the fact that they're going to be okay. And I think that's the context that probably should be added to this conversation that doesn't seem to get added to this conversation. It's just like an assumption because Philly did it. But Philly gets used both ways. They're like, all right, they were terrible, though. But the next season, they won the Super Bowl. It's like, well, doesn't that feel like a head coach problem when, like, the second time around, you're like, maybe they have that guy less involved? maybe he doesn't make the final decision. Maybe he doesn't make the final decision. And then it's like, oh, this works. That one's the one that gets me, bro, because people try to use it against us, but it also gets used as a positive, too. It's like, oh, Nick Sirianni found the dudes, and he made it work. It's like, yeah, because the first time was a train wreck. Of course, like, bro, anyway, that's it. That's my little thing right there, okay? I just wanted to do that because I thought it was fun, and there's that. Okay, outside of that, let me see what the chat's talking about. I appreciate y'all being here, man. I may cut this, make this a video instead of a live stream. Not good of a great player who epitomizes Dan Campbell and New Lions ethic. You were just trolling. Oh, yeah, okay. I think that was something else. Davenport was whooping Sewell in practice. No pads, obviously. Yo, shout out to Davenport, man. That's beautiful. But Davenport's going to cook. Well, hopefully he's out there. As long as he's out there, he's going to cook. So the Lions waived Gavin Holmes today. I did see that. Sad. They brought in a new corner. I have no idea what the dude looks like, but I was like, oh man, I kind of thought that he was gonna cook, but okay, maybe not. I don't know. What is the? And I'm trying to remember. Give me 1 second, chat. I want to make sure I have this right. Yeah. So. Okay. OTAs pick back up tomorrow, correct? Like, I'm not. Yeah, I think OTAs pick back up tomorrow. The only thing I'll have to say about that, I don't know exactly when I'm going to get that show or when I get a video or thing of something out on it because I don't know how fast the news is going to break. Like it just depends. I think we're back on tomorrow. I think we're 3rd through the 5th. I don't know how fast that's gonna happen. It just depends, but at some point we're gonna have it. But I wanted to double check. I think it's the 3rd through the 5th. I think it's the 3rd through the 5th, but let me double check real quick. Hang with me. Um, yeah, third. Okay, so tomorrow it's back up. Tomorrow's back up, not today. Tomorrow. Okay. Let Frank immediately take an assistant O line coach role and let him grow. And if he wants to do that, I'm on board with that for sure. I'm like, he might need a year though. I see Frank also like maybe needing a year, especially if it's health things. Like, let me get away from the game. Let me rest up. Let me get right, and then maybe I get back into it if he wants to. Shoot, coaching is coaching ain't just like I'm a like, yo, you spent a lot of time there though, bro. You maybe take some time off. Dan will be the main reason we win it all this year. I like that. His experience with 22 men down will give him knowledge how many coaches will ever have. His depth scheme will be dangerous. Dude, I'm with it, man. Dan's a dog. I'm with it. I'm with it, man. I think we can do it. I think we could do it. Maybe we did what Philly did the second time around. We getting a top 20 pick. Brad will be forced to draft an edge. Thank you for your sacrifice, Frank. We getting a top 20 tick, and Brad will be forced to draft an edge. Wait, are you saying because we lost Frank, we're getting a top 20 pick? So are we making the playoffs? If he feels way better in a year, do you think he could retire? I'm honestly, I don't think it's impossible that he unretires. I don't think it's impossible. I think in today's NFL, like I don't count the things out. I wouldn't expect him to. Like I definitely wouldn't expect it. I'm not like holding out hope, like, oh, hopefully. But I also today's NFL is like kind of dudes do that. I think it's different on the O line, like because it's just a different game than like quarterback. Especially if you're doing it at 29, like it doesn't feel like you'd be like, oh, hey, before 30, I retired, but I'm coming back. I feel good now. But I also won't count out because he is that young. It's like, well, maybe I don't know. If there's something he really wants to do that he feel like he didn't get to do. Maybe. Like I'm not counting it out, to be honest with you. I think today's NFL is a little bit different. And we see guys that kind of ponder it. I mean, we haven't seen a lot, but I think even for a while, it's like, well, is Jason Kelsey coming back? And then you get like these old tackles that'll come back. Like the dude from Philly came back at like 40, and Peters come back at like 40 years old. Like, dude, this guy's still playing football, bro. It's like, I don't know, man. Here or somewhere else, like I could see it. I would leave the door open to like 1%. I'm not shutting the door on him. Who do you think replaced Frank? Glasgow or Ratledge? I think Ratledge replaces Frank. I think honestly, I don't think it'll take long. My guess is I might be way off on this. My guess is week 1 of the preseason, they're rotating. I would say at latest, week 2 of the preseason, he's the center and he just goes forward. Like I could see it in training camp. Like this is our center. We want to dial this in. If this is division anyway, and we know this is here, let's not play around with it. And it's an opportunity for Colby Sorsel now to open up a spot to make the team. But I also think it's one of those things where hearing that Colby Sorsel went from like, hey, this guy tried at center and it seemed like it didn't go well, so we took him out of there. If that's the case, it seemed like Tate did pretty well then because he seemed like got a lot of snaps. I don't know how many. It seemed like he played a lot of snaps. I think Tate will be the center. And I think that I don't think it'll rotate. I think that Graham Glasgow is going to go to guard, but I'm not sure if he's going to start. If I had to guess week 1, I think he'll start at guard. I don't know for sure though that's the case. I don't know for sure that's the case, but if I had to guess, I think he starts at guard, and I would think that Mahogany starts 2, and that Frazier comes off the bench. But I'm a big Frazier guy, so I think Frazier's capable of starting this year. Frank played his first year at guard. He went to guard, and he was better at center. Like he came out as a guy that could do both. And he was better at center ultimately, and I'm glad we made the change. We just went to it, but the guy can do both. After all this, watch us win a Super Bowl. That's what I'm talking about, Marcus. Like this is great. Yeah, played great last year when he had to play center. It's definitely on the table. Like I would have no problem. That's why I'm not like super concerned about this because I don't think I have a problem. And I honestly think for Graham, it could be better to be at center. I think it could be better for him and his skill set to be at center. But if you're asking me to guess right now, I believe Tate Ratledge is the center in the NFL. So I think Tate's going to go to center. But I might just be early on it. That is what it is. And Tate being Tate's very similar. I think he's like 6'5.5". I think his official measurement's like 6'5.5". It could be closer to 6'6", but he measures out very closely in terms of like height to Frank Ragnow. very close. And the Lions have like, while tall guards are kind of weird. I mean, Dan Skipper played guard at one point for us, so I mean, I guess they've done it all. But like we've had tall interior offensive linemen. I mean, Graham Glasgow's not short. I don't think Graham Glasgow's that short at all. So Tate Rowledge is 6'6.5", and then you have let me get or 6'0", 6'4", and then you have Ragnow. Can't spell. Let me see. Big thing is, can you bend? You know what I'm saying? Can you bend a little bit? Ragnow is 6'5", 6'5'1", so he's essentially an inch taller. You know, he's an inch taller. I want to see. No, I like Tristan Colin. I would sign Tristan Colin. I wanted him a couple years ago as like a backup piece. I think we'll sign somebody. Like I don't know. I don't necessarily think it'll be a big name. I think it's on the board. You know, if like you could add Brandon Sheriff, I'd do it. I'd do it. But I think they'll add somebody. Somebody at some point will be signed. They'll add a body. I think at some point. Definitely frees up space. But I I do wonder about that too. The fact that they like from this perspective, if you are going to draft a guy that potentially could be your center of the future when you did, knowing that there was a potential that this guy could retire, and you've had those conversations with him. I mean, I don't know that it happened before the draft or after. How much did they truly believe that he was going to play if he played in this year, next year? Like, did they really think there was a possibility that he was going to play beyond this year? If there was conversation about this year, like I'm so saying that is like if he would have retired next year, that money saved, kind of into the same spot. So the big thing will be there is like pushing that money into next year will be the big help. Taking that cap space that you have this year into next year will help a lot. The problem is they'll run into there. They could. I don't know where their 4-year financials are. Is if they have too much money going over top and it's not letting them meet their threshold of how much they actually have to spend, because there is a threshold to how much you have to actually spend. And I don't know if they rolled over that money on top of what they already have, they would actually spend enough money. Like there could be the potential for rolling over too much money. It's on the table, but like, so I don't know. I don't know how comfortable they feel with it. I mean, they could look at it as like, all right, we need this money for next year, so this is great. We kind of anticipate he'd be out next year, so we'll just, we'll have that money that we saved next year, but we can put on top of that and push it over into next year. But if they're comfortable either way with it, then they could just spend it. I mean, they could. I don't know exactly where they'd spend it, but they could. You spend on Zedarius. I mean, if you want to do something like that, go get him now. Ben Johnson was a trick play genius, but was he an offense genius? I don't believe so. I think he was. I think he was fantastic. I only could talk about what I watched on the All-22, and we did it every week. I thought he was fantastic. Dude blew my mind every week. Every week blew my mind. I thought he was fantastic. The motto would be do it for Frank. I like that. But yeah, I mean, you could do other things. So I don't know, like what the problem is with I don't know what their full picture plan is. Like it's one thing to know the numbers, another thing to kind of like know what they're trying to do. Like I don't know what they're trying to do, so I don't know how this changes things exactly. Well, I think Alexander's only wants more years. He'll probably want more money on top of that, and I think he rightfully should ask for more money. But I think he just wants to be dialed in. So maybe that helps him with that a little bit. Maybe, because technically you could push next year. We kind of had that conversation on the last week's show, so I'll leave that one there. But I don't know. Maybe Zedarius signs now. maybe you can't afford Zedarius. Maybe you can pay for him now. Maybe you got it done now. Hey, those players are looking though, like, let me find out if they push Frank's money down the road, right? $9.2 million max they could spend if they push Frank's money down the road. What do you mean if they push it down the road? What do you mean? We could have drafted Jared Wilson. I thought Jared Wilson was a guard, so I wouldn't have put him at center. I would put him at guard. Trey Hendrickson money? I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think it's going to be that because Trey Hendrickson will go well beyond what Frank was making. Like he'd be 2 times that. And again, if they couldn't afford Zedarius, they would definitely not be able to afford that even with this. You know what I mean? So I don't think it'll get that far. Like if this does make them feel more comfortable spending money, I don't think it'd be that major, but it could get them into like, all right, we could drop a little 7 mil, 8 mil on a dude. And hey, that's nice. I mean, that could be a Zedarius Smith. I'd take that. It could be a Brandon Sheriff. I'd take that, something like that. It could maybe go that far. I don't think it would go super far beyond that though. It's just again, I don't know how much. Like if they're at a point though without that on the books and like, all right, we have that this year, and then it goes the next year. Like, do they get to a point where they haven't spent enough money, and then like, okay, well, we have to spend this money because we can't push all of this over. That's possible. You can get to that point. I just don't know what that's looked like over the last few years. If I knew the full picture, I could maybe have a better idea if they felt that way or if that was even a threat. But let's assume it's not a threat. It is extra money for this year. It's just, do you want to have it for next year where you definitely are going to need it, but you would have kind of already assumed that Frank wasn't going to be here next year, I would think. And then on top of that, you could push some of that money forward. So that helps you a ton. That would help you a ton next year. You have some more flexibility. I don't know. Brad feels like the kind of guy that's not going to make a super aggressive move after this, like because he's going to value that like every penny they're going to get back. But he also feels like the kind of guy that's gonna be like, okay, we're going to do something. Like, and we'll take our extra to his budget, extra 4 million, and go spend it somewhere. Like I could see him doing something like that. Like we're gonna take our extra 4 and we'll put it towards signing this guy. Like I could see him going that brave with it. What's the salary cap rules on a player retiring due to injury? Um, I don't know that retiring due to injury. I don't know the injury actually matters for. I could be wrong. I don't think that the injury actually matters for a player retiring. I believe almost all of it is just put back on the cap. Like I even think the bonuses are put back on the cap. I'm pretty sure everything kind of clears up for him. Um, Again, he had no guaranteed salary. I think everything kind of clears up for us. I don't know that the injury impacts that. Could be wrong though. I don't know that it does. I guess we'll find out soon. They'll start updating these things soon. Am I crazy for liking Campbell more than Anzalone? Like as a player? No, I think Campbell was really good last year. Before they do anything, they need to get Hutchinson extension done. That will get done. That will get done. There won't be a path in which that doesn't get done. I don't see like even a scenario. It's just how much do they have to spend. I guess I think that's the only thing there. Sad to see Ragnow retire. Thanks, Frank. Hey, facts. The Eagles O line won Super Bowl after Kelsey retired. Oh, okay. I see what you're doing. What do you think? Frank retired. Yeah, man. It's sad. Like it's sad, but it's good. It's not good. It's good for him. It's good for him. I'm happy for him. Um, it's kind of like ripping the Band-Aid off, it feels like in a way. But I am happy for him. Like it is weird to see a guy that's injured that much. It's like, oh, he's playing anyway. He's that tough. But it's kind of like, man, I'm just hoping that when he does retire, that he's not in a spot where he's like limited on things that he could do because he's that messed up from injuries. Like I'm hoping that he's not in that spot health wise that this like impacts him going forward. So I'm hoping that he got out at the right time. And now that he is out, for us, I'm confident. Like honestly, it hasn't shaken my confidence at all. Like seeing the news, it didn't do anything for me in terms of it's not that we're not losing a great player. It's just that I think we have really good players stepping in. And I'm actually more excited because now I think it's going to force some of the young guys in. I'm excited to see that, but I'm not like I really like the young dudes. And I'm really optimistic. Are we still on the hook for Cam Sutton? I think this is the last year with Cam Sutton. Yeah, this is the last year. 6.5 million this year. 6.5 million, and then next because they did 2 years. They split it in 2 years, so this year it ends. Everyone see the video of Frank when he took golf fishing? I have seen that. That was old though, bro. See, now we should get more of those videos. We should. New meta cover is Saquon hurdling in that one game. Incredible cover. That's one of the coolest moves of all time. Absolutely one of the coolest moves of all time. But his pass pro grading was mediocre. Was there anything on that on film? I remember Penny had some bad snaps, so not Frank. No, I mean, look, Frank would take his losses. Frank, and if I remember correctly, Frank had his. Frank for me would get out in front of his toes. He'd become a guy that would get out on his toes. He'd get early losses like that. Frank I always thought was so great because he was so he was such a good movement piece where he could move really easily. A lot of play action stuff I thought he would do well. I just thought that he'd get his weight out in front of him. So I remember some stuff like that happening, like bigger defensive linemen that were pretty darn agile could give him some problems just getting out, trying to get contact, trying to punch guys at the line. Remember things like that. And I think it was typically the teams. I could double check. I think it was typically the teams that like most of our interior guys have struggled with that he would too. A lot of times it was like divisional teams. If I'm remembering correctly, I think it was a lot of times like divisional teams where it's like, oh, they're pretty good on the inside. And they just give us a hard time. Frank, I thought Frank was always a good pass protector, but let me check. So let me see. Tampa Bay, he gave up 5 pressures, and that's one of those like big crazy athletes. I remember that game. That was rough. I remember doing that one back. Frank did have a rough game in that one. That one was understandable though. That was like, all right, Vita Vea is a problem. That's very understandable that guy gives you a lot of problems. Outside of that, they say he gave up 4 pressures against Indy. I don't remember that one that well. I think that was like Grover Stewart and they had like 2 big dudes in there that are pretty good athletes. I think that was mainly Grover Stewart that was kind of a problem in that game, if I'm remembering right. But I remember the Vita Vea one was tough. Like Vita Vea was really tough. Vita Vea destroyed that whole game, bro. That whole thing was a mess, dude. He's such a problem. I think he's gonna start at center first game. He can still fish. It matters. That's all, man. That's all matters. So you think the new Cap Money Frank signs Z sign? I honestly, if I had to guess, yeah. Yeah. Like if you were asking me to guess, I think they open that cap. I think he comes back. But he can't be slick and be like, yo, I got that you got that money now. Let's open it. Like, nah, bro. We ain't doing all that. Because I don't think the Lions are gonna go crazy and be like, all right, here's 15 million to there. Like, they're not gonna do that. They're gonna still be real tight, I think, with it. But I think the chances of Za'Darius re-signing did just go up. I think they did just go up. But it'll also depend on who they sign for the offensive line. Because I'm very, very certain they're going to sign an offensive lineman. It's just, did they go the route of minimum contract, or do they go to the route of one of the last veterans on the market and spend a little bit of money there? Depending on where they go. If they go the minimum market, I think he comes back probably. If they don't go that direction, well, I think he could come back. If they don't go that direction, they go on the vets. I don't think he's coming back still. Is there any free agent centers? Like, there's a couple dudes. You may actually have to go more of the guard route. There's not like I don't know. There's like a starting center on the market. Um, I don't know. There's a starting center out there. There's a couple guys that maybe could start at guard. Um, Center was not good this year for free agency though. Probably not a starting center. But like I said, I like Tristan Colin. I'd be on board with that. Um, it's kind of the only one though. The Brunskill one's kind of interesting because he's played every position. I believe he's played tackle and guard. I think he's played both those spots. But I would look at maybe one of the guards if they wanted to go that route too. Trying to see if there's anything. Yeah, maybe one of the guards. Maybe because I think you could spend some money on one of these guards. Like you could throw some money on one of these guards. Will Hernandez will cost a little bit of money. He's coming off a surgery. I think he's coming off like an ACL injury or something pretty significant. I think. And Brandon Sheriff is old. I think Brandon Sheriff is the clear best player. Um, Dalton Reisner's not bad either. Like he's kind of like a board, but Dalton Reisner's not a bad player either. If you just want to go the vet route, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Mark Lewinsky's kind of interesting. That could put him back in the kind of the minimum side, but he's played a little bit recently. I think he's played guard and center. And then, like I said, Jack Driscoll's kind of Jack Driscoll was one that I kind of like going into the free agency market, but nothing happened there. Yeah, Colin's not like Colin was when we lost Evan Brown, I liked the idea of going after Colin. And then the Arizona Cardinals also signed Evan Brown. So I was like, all right, well, okay, they got both of them. So Brad has body extension playing O line since the last draft. We got a gem so far in Mahogany. If he hits 2 times, we're set. That's it. That's true. Just hit on one more. Did we talk about salary cap ramifications yet? Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it just kind of all opens up. I'm not great with the rules there, but I'm pretty sure you get almost everything back as a team. I think. I think that's how it works. I don't think they get like any kind of like, oh, money accelerates. He didn't have any guarantees on his salary left, but I'm pretty sure it's just the money comes back to the team. And here I'll even read it right here. It says, I mean, he does have a signing bonus that's hitting a little bit. So maybe that's I don't know. Maybe that'll count for him is the signing bonus. That is that I don't know if Houston has that left though. I think they're gonna get most of this back, man. I think they're gonna get most of this. It says their contract is voided and they forfeit any remained guarantees and roster bonuses. Um, the team potentially incurring a dead money charge for the current year, similar to how a release would affect the cap. The team may also have the option to recoup a portion of the signing bonus, and the player may also receive a pension based on their years of service. That's interesting. So, a portion of the signing bonus, which could be a little bit, I think, and then the team may also. So, yeah, I think a signing bonus is a little bit impact here, less than 5 million. The dead money, if they just still have to deal with the dead money, that's 8.5 million. I mean, at the low end, they'll save 5.5, right? I read it was 9.5 we get this year and 3.5 dead cap next year. 3.5 dead cap next year. I might be right. Honestly, I have no idea. I don't know. 3.5. So you're well, 3.5 dead cap. Why would you have 3.5 dead cap? Maybe it's the. So yeah, okay. So his signing bonus, he has 1.2 million left in terms of his signing bonus. It looks like. So that maybe they can negotiate. It sounds like that could be something they look to get back. I don't know if they'll do that, but they could. So you'd have that. Let's assume that you just pay him the 1.2 million for this year, and then you have the option bonus, which I don't know what his options are. I'm guessing they're just roster bonuses. $18 million option bonus. I'm assuming they're roster bonuses. No, they're not roster bonuses. Okay, I don't know what his option bonuses are. So he has 3.6 million in option bonuses for the next 2 years. Maybe those are just picked up on a certain date. Yeah, that's more what it is. Like there's a date that those are put into effect. But I don't know how his option bonuses work. That's the problem. Because like my man said, 3.5 million dead cap. That's probably the option bonus. Because he's got a 750K roster bonus, which won't hit because he's gone. Neither, I think, will the workout bonus at the 100K for the next 200K for the next 2 years. That won't hit either. So yeah, I think the only thing that would hit is potentially the signing bonus, and then maybe the 2 option bonuses. And if it doesn't hit the option bonus, I don't think there's much dead cap here. There might be a little bit. They're saying 8.4, but they're saying 8.4 based on they're saying 8.4 based on the 7.2 plus the 1.2 is 8.4. They're saying the signing bonus plus the option bonuses are going to be dead cap. So if that's the case, at worst you'd have $8.4 million in dead cap. So that would be, and they're accelerating both. I don't think the option bonus would carry over though into 2026. I don't think like you would still owe him. Yeah, okay. So the roster bonus is due March 21st. So I don't know. I don't know what his option bonus is, but depending on what that is, if they have to carry both, and it sounds like they're going to be paying the signing bonus. Maybe they can ask for it back, like they did with Barry Sanders, I guess. But 1.2 million of that was already guaranteed, so he already has that money. It just now is impacting the salary cap. I don't know that that's going to come off the salary. I don't think that's going to come off the salary cap. So yeah, I think that's it, man. I think it's just a 3.6 million, and then we just see does both of them count or not. I think that's it. Grand Sheriff is 33. I'd still sign him. I don't care. Good player. Good player, dog. I'd still sign him. We only need him for a year. I don't need him for multiple years. We need him for 1 year. What up, though? Gotta say thank you, Frank. There you go, man. Let's show some love to Frank. We should start one of the rookies at center and take the money saved from Frank's salary to go get a stud linebacker. Stud linebacker. Man, there ain't no stud linebackers out there. We got Zach Cunningham, bro. What are you talking about, man? Will Alex get a new deal after his retirement? I thought he'd get a new deal regardless. And I don't know that I feel like this impact. I guess it just depends on how much they save, but like I think the Alex thing will be I think Alex is gonna get a new deal. And I think his new deal will be 1 year. It'll be a 2-year deal on top of his current last season. I think he'll get a strong guarantees thrown into that new deal for the next couple seasons. And I think that third year will be an out. And I think they'll move off him in the third year. So my guess is I think that's what they're going to do. That's what my guess was last time we talked about it. I still think that's probably what's going to happen. This could give them more flexibility, definitely to mess around with it if they wanted to like have more money maybe in the future. But this really is going to open up money for the next 2 seasons. So I still think that's probably what's going to happen. It'll lock him in for this year. It'll lock him in for next year, and he'll have an out in the third year. That's my guess. So he'll really be locked in for like 2 years, but the third year will be kind of, yeah, you can keep him or you don't have to, and it'll be one of those things again. And I think at that point they'll probably move off him. I think he will get re-signed. I think he'll get a 2-year extension. We did see that with Khalif, by the way. Let me look into that because that actually just like I just thought of that. Didn't Khalif Raymond get an extension during an offseason at one point? Yeah, Khalif Raymond signed a 2-year, $10.5 million extension in 2023. So I think it'll be something like that. 2023. So 2022, he was under contract. And he actually had a pretty good amount of guaranteed salary on his total cap number. But yeah, his entire base was guaranteed. So they went and they no, it'd have been 2023. Yeah, so in 2023 they had about half of his number in guaranteed salary. So they ended up extending him for 2 more seasons, and then they had like a little pay cut in there. Maybe it's something like similar to the Khalif deal, just maybe double the money. Probably somewhere double the money. Will Tater Graham. Yeah, man, I'm a stick to it, man. I think Tate plays center. I think Tate plays center. Either I mean, I don't really. It doesn't bother me either way. Whatever one works better. You know, I think that first off, I think Tate needs to earn his starting spot. It sounds crazy, but before Frank retired, I didn't think he was guaranteed to start. I thought when Frank retired, like I thought he'd be the center of the future, but because we had Frank, I didn't think there was a guarantee that he was going to start because I thought Miles Frazier could start. So I thought like, hey, I didn't think there was a big gap between him before the draft at guard. So I thought like, okay, there's a possibility Miles Frazier beats him out, and he got Mahogany and Glasgow. Like I don't know that he's going to start. Now that he's gone, it feels like that window's much more open, of course, and he probably will be open. So I don't. It doesn't bother me either way. I think he's going to start now. Like I'm pretty confident he's going to start. I don't think it's guaranteed he's going to start, but I think it's better shot. But I think he's going to go to center. I think he's going to start a center. I think Za'Darius would take a 1 year. I think he'd definitely take that. I think he would absolutely take that. Just in, Eagles trade up Bryce Huff. Eagles falling apart. Eagles falling apart. I don't even know if Bryce Huff played in the playoffs for him last year, which is the crazy thing. Oh, my camera turned off. All right, hold up. Yeah, I don't know that dude even played in the playoffs. If I remember right, I think he just played in the. I don't think he played much at all. I think he barely played for him. He's kind of fleeced the 49ers there, huh? Why would the 49ers trade for another edge? They just drafted one. I don't know. They love their edge rushers. See, that's what I'm talking about. Getting back to who you are. They're getting back to who they are, man. There we go. Time for eyes on Nite Mutai. It is time for that, bro. No, it is time for that. We're gonna have to talk about Nite Mutai here soon. We're gonna have to. He's gonna force our hand, man. You're right. You're absolutely right. We're gonna have to give some real attention to Nite Mutai, bro. You're not wrong about that at all. That's weird though. Yeah, I don't know how that works, man. I don't know. So I guess we'll see. But definitely should open up some caps. And I feel much better about Za'Darius signing now. I didn't believe he would resign, and now I kind of think it's possible. I wonder if Hank has any saying on who will be starting center. Oh, I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. I mean, he's. I would think they trust a guy like that. Um. So yeah, I would think so. I wanted Tate to learn the center position for 1 year, and it would have been hard if he was on the field, but he was off the field, like But um, that's life, bro. I guess it's the NFL. Hey, as Dave Phipps said, there's no time for development. All right, there's no time for development. If you're not good enough, can't get on the field, then the coaches are mad at you, and then you're out. No time for development in the NFL. That's what Dave Phipp told us. Hey, Dave Phipp wasn't playing, dog. No time for development. All right, Dave, calm down, man. Uh, a month or two before training camp, best time of the year outside before the draft. Outside of before the draft. Yeah, it would have been a nice thing for fans to see that happen because it'd been easier for us to take in the fact the Lions took out 2 linemen. But it tells me that they had a sense. They had a strong sense this was coming. But we definitely got to give Nite Mutai some love. You think he makes the Ring of Honor? I would say no, but he should get something, man. I would like to see him get something. I would say no. They only have like 9 players up there, don't they? Most of them, I don't know who they are, but they only got like 9 dudes up there. Didn't Kelvin just get on there? I don't think they'll put him on there. Kelvin's the Hall of Fame. I don't think Frank's going to the Hall of Fame. I don't know that. I don't know how they do centers, to be honest. I don't know what they judge it on. Foot injuries are tough. That's what I'm saying, man. Like, dude, I don't know how he's doing it. He's probably got that thing wrapped up like crazy. He probably can't even feel his feet. That dude just, dude just stomping, man. Dude, could you imagine getting stepped on by a dude that's 350 pounds at nose tackle? Could you imagine him stepping on your foot? Oh my goodness. That might be the worst thing of all time. With cleats, bro, you got a 350-pound nose tackle that steps on your right foot and you're in pass protection. Like, you're not running at him. You're sitting back and he steps on your right foot, dude. Like, man, that might be the worst thing of all time, truly. I couldn't imagine how many of those he's had. Shoot, especially if your foot's already messed up. Come on, bro. You think no Alex we'd roll with a Meek Jack Barnes or Rodriguez Barnes Jack? Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question. So if I have my that's a good question. I would assume more of Meek. But that is a good question. I would assume we'd lead more nickel coverage. I would assume so. But it did seem like they wanted to play base. So I would assume more Meek Robertson with them just kind of leaning into just him playing slot. But I feel comfortable with either of those. The way you lay it out there. Like, yeah, if Malcolm was chilling back there with Jack, I think it would be pretty good. I feel pretty good with either of those. I'm going to say Meek, though. It's a good question. The NFL players are going to run right through Tate Miles. Too early, but let's pray. Hey, man, look, you got to find out. You got to find out some way. What's it called? We had who was it? So let's actually look at that real quick because 2023 we had multiple offensive linemen drafted. And Shaq Mason only 31. But wasn't Shaq Mason garbage last year? Was he good? I thought he was garbage last year. That's why he's available. Okay, so yeah, last year we had Paris Johnson. I think Paris Johnson was like really good once he got right. Who are the cut candidates? Do we wait and see before jumping at the old line right now? That's a good question too. I don't know. Like that's where it depends, right? Because if you want like a Tristan Colin or something, you can wait. If you want to Brandon Sheriff, maybe you jump on that now because he kind of stands out. Like this guy could start. I think a lot of the other guys aren't going to start. There's maybe a couple that you could see a path to them starting. You probably just jump on those now while you have the money. I would, but if you're not going to go that route, which if I was a guessing man, I don't think they will. I think they'll go the route of adding a minimum type of offensive lineman. If they're going to do that, then yeah, I mean maybe sign one of those and then still wait, and then whoever comes available, then maybe take your swing then. But if you're going to go like a Dalton Reisner, if you're going to go a Will Hernandez, you're going to go a Brandon Sheriff or something like that, then shoot, go get him now. Jack Barnes and Rodrigo sounds great. Yeah, that's a good lineup. So Paris Johnson. Okay, I thought Paris Johnson was pretty good last year. Then he had Darnell Wright, who seemed pretty solid too. This was the 2023 draft, though. What am I looking at here? You see the new corner they signed. I did. I saw his name. Not much beyond that, to be honest with you. I'll have to check him out a little bit more tomorrow. Jackson Powers Johnson was in the second round last year. He did pretty well though, because he moved positions. Jackson Powers Johnson would pick 44 to the Raiders, and I think that he moved positions during the year. And he did pretty well, I think, for them. And he was picked 44. Zach Frazier, who I wasn't a big Zach Frazier guy because of his pass protection. Did Zach Frazier do well for the Pittsburgh? He may have done well. I don't know. People liked him a lot. I don't know. Let me see. I think he did pretty well. Played a lot, 900 snaps. All right, so you got Zach Frazier in there. He did pretty well. Pick 51. He was the center. And then you had Patrick Paul, who didn't play. Well, he played a little bit, but he was a backup to Tunsil. You had Blake Fisher, who I think is going to play a lot this year, but I don't think he played that much last year because he was with Houston. He might have played a lot last year. He might have went to right tackle last year. He was picked 59. So, I mean, he's in a category where it's like there were starters. He could. I mean, shoot. We'll find out. I see Glasgow at center. Look, man, I don't, but I'm cool with it. Like it really don't bother me, man. I think either one would be fine. I think it's gonna be Tate, but I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll find out. It's really gonna come down to where Tate's at, I think, and then yeah, I think that's probably all it's gonna come down to be honest. What about David Andrews? Yeah, David Andrews is interesting. Because I saw that name too, and it threw me off. I remember him getting released. Oh no. Hold up. I'm getting a thing here. Is this Instagram? What is this? Get off my screen, bro. We have to look at some of these guys. We have to revisit this. You know what I'm saying? We have to revisit some of these linemen that are out there. How old? So David Andrews is 32 years old. Let me see. Last time he played, he retired. Okay, maybe that's why I was thinking that was a weird one. Yeah, because last time he played like really was 2023. Hmm. Hey, maybe he comes out of retirement. Let's see. David Andrews retires formally. Oh, today he retired. He retired today, bro. Hey, this must have been the day to do it. Everybody, I see. I think the reality is they recognize once the OTAs are popping off, they're like, I'm not there, and I'm supposed to be there. Um, after 9 seasons, that's it, man. 9 seasons. So, oh man, he's crying too. I don't want to watch this, but I kind of do too. So David Andrews retired today, 30 minutes ago. Mitch Morse did too. Oh, these dudes were on a group text, bro. No, that's crazy. But honestly, I feel like that's what it was. It's like they know they're supposed to be here right now. It also doesn't make our situation that unique then anymore. It's kind of like okay, all right. I want to. We have Kingsley Eguakon on the roster. We do have Kingsley. If he can put it together, he was pretty horrible in last preseason. So if that's gonna, oh man, dude wrote it. Dude wrote this down. Is Frank gonna give a presser? See, this is making me sad, bro. I shouldn't even put this on. Yo, if y'all didn't see this, I don't know what kind of goofy website I'm on right now. This website is garbage, bro. What are we doing right now? What is this? Oh man, this is sad, bro. This is sad, man. Oh, I hope Frank gives us one. Frank needs to give us a little thing. Not because I want to see him cry, but we got to hear from Frank, man. That's the kind of guy like you just. Oh snap! I get camera turned off. All right. Well, I guess that's Is that a sign? I don't know. It might be a sign. Is that time? Daniel Brunskill. See, I like Brunskill. I like Brunskill a little bit. Um, I really like the idea of going with Jack Driscoll too. Like Jack Driscoll was at least interesting to me before because I thought he could play guard pretty well. I'm not mad at either of those to be honest. Brunskill wasn't he the Wisconsin offensive lineman? I think he played at Wisconsin. That's where I like first like oh I kind of like this guy. He said with Alex convert Barnes to hybrid end, which he kind of is. Roll with Jack, Alex, and Rodriguez. Keep them on the field. They might, bro. They might. I'd be cool with that. Those are some good players. This is the worst Monday ever. No, it's not. It's not. It's a good Monday. It's good. It's good. It's happy Monday. Oh, look, man, I just did like a happy topic, kind of. Not really. The first one was not happy, but it's look, man, it's good. It's good, bro. It's all good. We get to see the young guys rolling. It's all good, bro. It's all good. OTAs are tomorrow. There's that. Depending on when I'm able to get those out, but that starts tomorrow. And now we got a lot of topics that we got to talk about. I just showed a girl man crying. This is true. What I'm saying right now, yeah, this is true. I did just show that. Okay, that's on me. Okay, sorry I showed that. Uh, this is an opportunity though to do Dalton Risner. I would sign Dalton Risner. This is an opportunity to because I've watched Dalton Risner. I've watched Dalton Risner. I've watched Brunskill. I've watched Driscoll. I've watched Colin a lot. Um, who was the other ones? I've watched Sheriff. I've watched Will Hernandez. So a lot of those dudes I've watched. Who's your favorite NFL ever? Oh, favorite NFL player ever, and who's your favorite player president playing? Oh man, I don't think I have good answers for this. To be honest with you, I don't know who my favorite player is right now. I think my favorite player ever. I think my favorite player ever is still Stafford. Like I don't think that's gonna change because that was like the dude I grew up with. So I think Stafford is still and always will be my favorite player ever. Favorite now though, like I feel like my favorite players now are either one guys that I like really believe in when we draft them, like oh this guy's gonna be awesome. So like the Vakis and stuff, or the Rake Straws, or it's someone that maybe I've like some sort of connection to them, maybe not them or maybe their family or something. So like Goff or Ali McNeil, um, guys like that. Like I love Jerry Jacobs, like guys like that. Trying to think who else. Tracy Walker was pretty darn cool. Tracy Walker was cool dude. Taylor Decker. I don't know. Favorite player right now though. Like I guess if I was trying to go like outside the Lions, I was a big Palomalu guy. So big fan of him. And then always was a big Stephon Gilmore fan. Always a big Stephon Gilmore fan, bro. I love Stephon Gilmore. I followed that was like the one dude that wasn't a Lion that I would follow on like other accounts. I love the idea of playing cornerback, and Gilmore was that dude in like the late like right before 2020, he was that dude. I think in 2019 he was defensive player of the year. Barry Sanders, now Branch. See, there you go. See, I didn't even get to see Barry. I had the video. I mean, if I can count Barry, I count Barry up there. I don't know. Like, I love the movie that I got to watch over and over, but that's all I got to watch. Nick Harris. I think Nick Harris has gone through some things. I think he's gone like through a lot of injuries, or either that or it hasn't went well at all. It's been one of the two because that one was always weird to me. I think he was available back when. Okay, I think it was available back. Okay, I don't know what I clicked here. I think it was available back when like free agency was going on. And I remember seeing the name. Like, why is Nick Harris available? Like, I remember him coming out. I'm pretty sure it like really hasn't went well with Cleveland. I think that's what it is. Either that or injuries. Something's been a mess there. Could be wrong though. Let me check. Yeah, he just hasn't played much. Like that thing has always been weird. I don't place on IR in 2022. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. Maybe it was a culmination of both. Okay, yeah, 2022 he didn't play. See, now someone like that would make sense though. Like if he's healthy now, someone like that would make sense to bring it. That would be a move that I could see the Lions making, signing a Nick Harris. That's the kind of move they'll probably make, is something like that. Okay, that's the last injury. So maybe that might be a kind of move they make. Something like that might make sense. I grew up watching Barry the Man was a human pinball. That scene in Step Brothers where he's burying the guy who's still alive. Wait, is that in Step Brothers? Burying a guy that's still alive? Oh my gosh. Isn't he burying his brother? That's never the scene I go to when I think of Step Brothers. Let me relive that scene for a second. Buried alive. All right, let me see. Okay, yeah, no, I remember that now. All right, I remember that now. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I remember that. There's a lot of good scenes in that movie. There's not a. What team do you think of better line than us now? Nobody, bro. Nobody. Who are we talking about? You know what I mean? They all got to prove it. Being honest. No, I mean, there's some shoot. Minnesota's got a really good O line. Not gonna say it's better than ours. Last year was kind of messy, but I think they had a pretty good O line. Green Bay has a really good O line. This division's all trying to kind of build the same now. I think everybody's like, oh, maybe we should do that. Chicago's went crazy on it. Like the NFC North definitely has the best collection of offensive lines. I would say that. That feels. In the past, it was like Cleveland, and I think Pittsburgh would kind of maybe get in there. Maybe not though. They haven't been a good O line in a minute. But I think right now it's definitely the North. Favorite, Jack Driscoll's 28 shoulder injury that he had surgery on after the Super Bowl. That's interesting. That could be maybe why he's still out there. Maybe. Yo, did this dude just change his picture? Oh no, he didn't. One pride, he was a different person. All right, I got you. I thought you changed your picture somehow or in here. Outside the Lions on both questions. Don't let him lie to y'all. Stafford, it's Killebrew. Killebrew's a dog too, bro. Killebrew's tough, man. Okay, so what do we got to dive into now? We got to dive into O lineman options, like some new options, new lineman options. Frank Ragnow money saved and what that could mean. I think that's the two new topics now that we have. And then I guess on top of the expectations. That sounds like a singular video. So here's going to be the plan. Tomorrow, I'm going to make a video on that. I'm going to watch some O linemen. I'm going to try to figure out the Frank Ragnow money thing. And I'm also going to look at what I think the O-line is going to look like. And then whenever we get it, at some point, we'll talk about OTAs. Now, that might be a live stream if it's late, just because I don't want to edit it at 1 a.m. But at some point, we'll do a show on that. But before that, hopefully, like morning/afternoon, you'll get that video. Nitain Mutai. Okay, yeah. Let me write that down too. Let me not overlook Nitain Mutai. Hey, he's on second team too. So let me write him in there. Let me make sure I bring him up tomorrow. I'm gonna bring him up tomorrow. All right. Well, I think we're good then. I think we hit on everything here. Reminder video is gonna be fire. Yeah, man. I think we hit on everything. That little plant you got back there looks like some water. Man, it's a fake tree, bro. I use it as like a Christmas tree, but it's just I don't even like it. I don't know if it's actually a Christmas tree. There's like rocks in it. It's supposed to be a Christmas tree. Oh, snap. It does look like it needs water though. That's crazy. It kind of does, but no, that's not a real tree. There's rocks in it. Except for the rocks don't come out. It's like they're like stuck in there. Jedrick Wills healed before signing the team. That's interesting. I have heard Jedrick Wills' name come up, but because he's dealing with injuries. All right, well, we'll figure that out. I'll go through some of the names that you talked about. I'll see what I can find that's good. And yeah, we got Mufasa, and then we got Sonic and Knuckles. We also have the stuffed animals of Sonic and Knuckles, but first we had this. This came first. So it doesn't look great, but it was supposed to look cool. It doesn't look great, but you get the idea. It's good for Christmas. I just like Christmas, so I'm gonna leave it up there. All right, we out of here, man. I appreciate y'all joining, and I will see y'all tomorrow with that video, unless anything else breaks tonight. I gotta get some dog food. So this dog's just pushing her bag around, so I gotta go do that, and we'll get that out tomorrow. And then tomorrow we'll be back at some point for OTA. So stay tuned. Again, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna plug this over and over. All y'all on X right now. Everybody on X right now. I don't know what I honestly forgot what I was gonna say. I'm gonna be honest with you. Everybody on X right now, go to the community tab because you're not on YouTube. So do this. Go to my community tab and click the Tate Ratledge video and watch it. Show it some love, man. Show it some love. Because I'm working on the Ahmed video right now. Ahmed. I'm working on his video right now. Not like editing it, but I'm working on the process of putting that report together. He's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun, man. I might be like way over the top with this dude. Like, there's a chance I'm way over the top with this guy. It's on the table that I'm like, oh man, this guy's gonna be like, but it's possible. After I think I've went through 4 or 5, his first 4 or 5 games so far. So I'm in a good spot with Ahmed. But that's in the works right now. And if those videos get love, those become priority because I love doing them. So tune into those, and that video will get out sooner. Maybe. I don't know if that's true or not, but it might be. Maybe true. I don't know. All right, we out of here, man. Have a great night. Appreciate everybody joining. Thank you, Frank Ragnow, for everything. And wishing you the best in your retirement. And we'll have something tomorrow, man. I appreciate y'all joining, though, man. Have a great Monday night, and I will see you guys on Tuesday. We out.